Welcome to day 2 of DMG MORI UK's Technology Excellence live event, direct from the headquarters here in Coventry. As you may know, DMG MORI have a huge range of over 150 machine models, but we are going to break that down for you. Now, 43% of the business secured by DMG MORI UK in 2020 was from brand new customers. There has been an industry perception that owning a DMG MORI may be out of many people's price range, but DMG MORI UK are here to prove that wrong. Today we're covering their core products, how they benefit from automation, how accessible they can be with DMG MORI Finance, and how their software backs it all up. So up next, Steve Finn is joining Mark and Paul on the sofa to explain how investing in a DMG MORI is going to transform your business.
Welcome to the showroom here in Coventry at DMG MORI. This is day 2 of Technology Excellence. I'm joined here with Steve Finn, the Managing Director, and also Mr. Paul Jones, Managing Director of MTD, and my colleague. Now, quite an interesting day yesterday. We're talking a lot of aspects about turning, milling, additive, some of the insurance products, the finance products. But Steve, give us a little bit of a roundup how you felt yesterday went.
Well, I was very pleased because it's not easy for people to sit in front of cameras live and project themselves out. The other issue that we have is we have such a wide product range. It's very difficult to condense that all into one, to itemise what this customer needs and this customer needs. But I would like to think that what I saw, we gave a good overview of what we actually can produce in the way of machine tools, what we can supply in the way of automation, digitisation, insurance, finance. It's a very, very rounded package. So I was very pleased with it, and I hope the message has got across to the customer base, and hope they're pleased with it more than I am actually.
Well, we're going to be a bit more technical today. Paul and myself are going to be talking to the guys in specific machines in the milling solutions and also the turning solutions. Highlights for you, Paul, yesterday?
I think we covered, as Steve said, I think what we did was cover a lot of the range quite quickly, but still gave a lot of detail. So I think it should have given engineers a really good appetite for what DMG MORI can do. And also important to say that if you go onto the YouTube channel, if you're not on there now, you might be on another social platform, you'll be able to watch all of yesterday's show. All of the sections that Mark mentioned will be there on YouTube today, tomorrow, and in the future. So do watch. But I do think it was a really good overview, a quick overview of what we've got. And today I'm excited, obviously, to talk about many machines, including this one beyond us.
Well, that's your favourite, isn't it, in the portfolio? So, but really, what's important to say is really, Steve, what is the purpose of these 2 days for DMG MORI UK?
Well, it's very important, as I said yesterday, that we keep letting our customer base understand what we can do, what we have availability of machines. So we've got 40 odd machines coming in for stock, because we sincerely believe that the market is going to pick up significantly. We've seen that in the last 2 months, so we've got to be ready to supply instantly. And we've got a variation of machines, from fairly simple manual machines that we do for colleges and universities, through to the complex machine that we've got behind with a multi-pallet system on, big tool changers, 5 axes and turning. So yesterday actually we got some really interesting questions, which is really nice to understand what the customer is wanting. Perhaps questions that we hadn't thought about, and then we can answer them. So a lot of them came through to Charlie yesterday, and we've answered all those questions. At least I hope we have. But if I looked at them, we were comfortable to answer them. We picked up a couple of very good inquiries where people want us to now engage with us a bit deeper into their buying process. So for me, it's been a very good success. And as you rightly say, Paul, if you missed it yesterday, you can watch it again on YouTube as of today.
And now we've got a roadmap outside of what we're talking about here in the country for the lockdown and so forth. This is a really good time, isn't it, now, to be doing this, because it's that sort of springboard into spring where people can start to, and I know we said yesterday they should have had their curtains open all along, but the ones that have had them shut really do need to open them now, don't they?
They need to open.
It's going to be a busy quarter.
Yeah, and we usually use Fronton to do that. So we go to Fronton generally about this time of year, and we have a big show there. We take normally about 70 people along to that show, and that is a good springboard for us. So this year, with no external events, this is ideal.
And it was quite interesting you saying when you look at last year that your sales, now 43% was new business. What do you put that down to, Steve?
We've been working very hard since we came together as DMG as Mori to become one company. There were lots of aspects of both sides that were really good that we utilised, and there were aspects that weren't good, and we had to make significant improvements on them. And I think that shows, the 43% shows that the market is accepting us as a quality supplier of machine tools, but also with the resources behind us to actually back it and support the customer all the way down the line. That gives a big message to me.
And part of today as well is talking a little bit more about the automation aspect of your business as well, because you know there's been a lot of challenges with automation over the years, but DMG Mori have really sort of developed some key products rather than work directly with third parties, basically.
Yes, it's all our own product in the main, so we can look after it technically, we can grow it, we can develop it, and interestingly our R&D has continued very strongly over the last 12 months. So automation is vitally important. I know you're going to talk about it in detail later, but it's vitally important to become competitive. You know, we're seeing stuff being brought back into the UK for manufacturing because of the problems with transportation costs. You know, you buy a container now, a container will now cost you £10,000 to buy, and then you've got to fill it, and then you've got to transport it, you know, and we had a customer last week who was talking to me about how his tool making has really taken off because the tools are now being used in the UK rather than shipping all that stuff across. So there's an opportunity to become very competitive with automation.
What I think about this show as well is that it's great hearing it from you guys, but I think it's also important to point people at our YouTube channel to watch some of the case studies and the testimonials that we've done recently with companies that have embraced not just your machine tool solutions, but the commercial support you've offered them. Two specific ones would be Bedford CNC and NERC Precision, two companies that probably before you sat down and spoke to them about your support commercially may not have gone down the road of buying the machines from you. So there's some really good endorsements of your services in general on the YouTube channel, and I think that really complements what we're going to do today.
Yeah, you know, the finance is an important part of today's business. Yeah. It's not just about supplying a piece of cast iron. You've got to have that rounded approach to the customer and be able to advise him on all areas, and that's what I saw yesterday from my staff, some great skill sets there from their abilities. You know, certain guys specialising in certain subjects, additive, finance, insurance, you know. We can actually be a very good communicator and support mechanism for the customer.
And perception's always been something that you guys have battled over the years, but now I think obviously with the portfolio of products, the finance, the automation, the additive, you know, it all comes together to break that down, doesn't it, Steve? And that's why you're doing so well, I suppose. Yeah,
complete package, isn't it, really? It means that the customer has to sit in his office, or in this case, perhaps his home, and deal with you know, one company, but various aspects of the company.
So you can sit back and watch now?
I can sit back and watch the rest of the day, watch my staff. I'm going to enjoy that. Good luck to them, because it is tough to sit here. It's not easy to portray everything. They won't get everything right, but actually when they're in front of a customer, they're good. Yeah, they're really good. It's
great practice for them for this. I mean, it would be in the future of how events could possibly be. Yeah, it's a good way of getting the message across. So.
Okay, moving on. Now, next we've got the milling and automation range coming up, but we're looking at specific two products at 1045, and we're not forgetting about turning and automation at 11:10. So we'll see you soon.
Welcome back to day 2 of this Technology Excellence live event by DMG MORI UK. Now, the theme of today's show is to highlight in depth some of DMG MORI's most popular machines. Coming up shortly, the milling experts will be talking about the automation capabilities of some of the most popular core products, the DMU 50, DMU 75 monoblock and the NMV 3000. And if you're looking for a turning solution, that will be discussed after in depth. We are live and we want your interaction, so please feel free to send in those questions or email your inquiries to charlie.lucas@dmgmori.com. Over to you, Mark.
Welcome back to the DMG MORI showroom. We're going to be talking about the milling solutions with automation. I'm here with Kevin and Tim and obviously Paul. We're going to be diving into 2 specific machines, and the first one is the NMV 3000, which is the machine behind me, Kevin.
Yes, NMV 3000, probably one of the most accurate machines, one of the most powerful machines really that we offer. Definitely high accuracy and always offered with automation. So the machine that you can see behind you is with automatic workpiece changer on the right hand side. This particular model's got 34 pallets, and then on the left hand side you've got a tool changing mechanism as well. So really compact for the customer. The customer stands at the front of the machine, has his automation to his right and his tooling to his left.
When you look at this sort of machine, probably come to you, Tim, on this. There's a massive market for these now, isn't there, these days? As you know, automation becomes more popular, and there has always been a misconception that these need to be running the same components day in, day out. But this pallet system and the amount of tools that you've got really lend itself to being able to do lots of those, difficult parts, difficult materials, because we'll talk about the build of this machine. But it's about flexibility, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I prefer that word than production, really. It's flexibility.
Yeah. I think going back to when the machine first hit the market, they were all standalones, basically. But once people started to realise what you could do with 5-axis, and that you were not just dedicated to one particular component, that the AWC, the work changer, out of hours machining, sort of at night, weekends, came into its own. Machine like that, you would expect to be running out of normal regular hours, or most of the time, basically. And certainly the customers that we have here in the UK run those machines evenings, nights, weekends, and they have a variety of different components.
Kevin, when you look at the type of customer that this type of machine actually appeals to,
Yeah.
is there a typical customer that you would sell this solution to?
Really, it's quite flexible in what market we'll take the machine into. There's customers, aerospace customers, there's motorsport customers, there's a number of subcontractors that move into many different fields with the machine. I mean, it really is flexible. You've got the workpiece changer here with 34 pallets, but we do a workpiece changer with 114 pallets, which we call the flex system. So you can reconfigure the shelving within the machine to suit different parts, different size of parts go in the workpiece changer, and you could have a different component on every single pallet if you so wish, and you can clearly put a sequence together of which order you would like those pallets to be manufactured while the guys are actually within the factory or fully over the weekend.
So what you're saying is it's more sort of prismatic, high-end machining that this is capable of?
It is, but it's also capable of turning. This particular model that we have here is the option for turning, so the C-axis of the machine, as standard is 150 RPM, but this particular model goes up to 2000 RPM. So turning is available and is fitted to this actual machine.
You see, I take up your points, Kevin, about the two industries you mentioned, but I think this machine can be there to service pretty much any industry, and I know you probably agree with that, and you maybe just mentioned those two. I think the key to this sort of product now is it's going into companies that you would never have expected to have machines with these pallet systems. And it's going into companies where they realise that there are challenges with manufacturing. And lights out manufacturing, there's challenges with that too. And the better the machine, the way it's geared up, the more likely you are to overcome those challenges. Now, the things I talk about, and I'd be interested to know your answers on this, things like, Tim, let's say, for example, if you're running this machine 24/7 and you are cutting harder materials, how do you reduce tool wear, or how does the machine reduce tool wear? Is it down to the rigidity of it? What about things like growth? You know, you're going to get heat when you're through the spindle. How does this machine, for taking the automation off it, how is it built in order to be equipped to defeat those challenges?
Yesterday we briefly touched on DCG, the DCG concept driven at the centre of gravity. This machine is a full DCG machine, but it also has other integrated, you know, sort of company designed technologies. You know, you've got the octagon ram as well for superb rigidity. It's a box guideway. As we mentioned, we're sitting in this box-in-box system with the twin drives, face and taper contact in the spindle, which is excellent for stopping, you know, vibration. You know, sometimes you see that little pattern on the bottom faces of parts. This machine, because it's got this superb rigidity in the ram, and with the, as I said, the face restraint contact, you eliminate that area there. You've got cooling through basically all the main items on the machine. Anything that's moving is cooled basically. So we can maintain a very, very good thermal accuracy on the machine.
It's all quite, when you can see it, it's great to have it behind us here, but you look at this kind of construction, and the y-axis is fully supported, isn't it, wherever it's in its position. You know, you can see by looking at it that the attention to detail on the build and the points that you mentioned obviously make that possible. Now, also interesting part of this is the machines that are in stock. There's 3 of these that are here available at the moment, isn't there? I mean, Kevin, what would those 3 be? What would they be equipped with?
All 3 machines are equipped as we see them here. So they've all got 34 pallets, and they've all got 121 tools. This one machine now has the turn-in option, but they're all typically would come with automatic tool length measurement, probing in the spindle. Yeah, fully equipped, ready for lights out machining. We only really specify that level of technology for the UK.
So complete package, basically.
Complete package.
I mean, Paul, interesting. You said about lights out engineering, let's say, but I suppose this type of machine with skill shortages, yet again, it's that type of...
Perfect, yeah, I mean, so this can replace several machines. You know, there's no question. You could have 4 or 5 machining centres, and this sort of machine, because that spindle is going to be continually turning, will give you the opportunity to save on floor space as well. The economy of it, you know, we talk about the cost of ownership. You have a machine like this, and a lot of those costs that are associated with multiple machines just disappear, don't they? So it's a very interesting concept.
Tim, I've got a question. DMG MORI states that it's the world's fastest rotary axis drive on this machine. Why?
On the B axis and the C axis there, we've got 50 RPM, I believe, on the B axis, and we have 150 RPM in the table. So those figures there, again, the motors are direct driven motors, again a DMG MORI technology. So it's you know, proven technologies.
And are you talking here then in acceleration and deceleration, being able to move from point to point? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. And I also think that, again, we just want to pick on the quality of that machine again. When people talk about 5-axis accuracy, is for me the true accuracy of how these machines perform when you're looking for that nth degree is how well the machine can interpolate in 5 axis. Because our circularity on this machine is exceptional. We're talking better than 2 microns when all 5 axes are interpolating a hole.
Is that over a continuous period of time? How does that?
Yes, that will perform continuously in that way.
Just a question that we've had come in, which I think is fairly wide, but a good one to ask actually. Kevin, is automation available on all of your milling machines?
Thinking about it, yes,
Yeah.
except for the M1.
Okay.
But you could have automation on the M1 if you had third-party automation. But don't forget, all the automation that we speak of here today is DMG MORI technology. You can add third-party automation to machines. It's not quite so well integrated.
We could talk about this a lot more, I know, and I'm sure there's a lot more detailed videos on the DMG MORI website of this machine and its capabilities. And the other model you're going to talk about is it the DMU50, Mark, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's. I mean, obviously we know a lot about a lot of the ranges that you have, but this is quite. This is something that you have in stock on a regular basis, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got at the moment 2 DMU50s in stock with the PH150, and it's the PH150 particular piece of automation that we'd like to talk to you about. We all talk about PH150, but the PH150 can be configured by the sales team for a particular customer. PH150, for instance, you could have 4 pallets 500 by 500 capacity, or you could have the PH150 configured with us for 400 by 400 pallets, or 320 by 320. We also can configure that with round pallets, 210 mil diameter, and you can also have it configured with 148 pallets, and that gives you a total of 24 pallets in the PH150. So don't just think of the PH150 as a single particular option. There are multiple options in the PH150.
Now we've been quite fortunate, haven't we? Obviously we've been out, for the last 10, 11 months, showing capacity, and the DMU50 has come up a few times, hasn't it?
It has, and I think it's important to stress as well that this isn't just, I know we're talking about DMU50 here, which is a 5-axis machine, but a lot of these automation options can be added to some of your other machines, but they really do lend themselves to this type of product, don't they? Because you're doing 5-phase machining of a part, and you can then take it off and put it onto the pallet system, so it gives you that unmanned run. I think some of the solutions we're going to talk about today is that the PH150, the PH cell, and because again we're pretty constricted with time here, or restricted with time, what we want to do is identify some of the differences. The PH150 looks great. I see the options with the various pallet sizes. What's the difference then with that and then the PH cell, Tim?
Okay, so the PH150, and as you said, it's not just fixed to a DMU50, it can go on a CMX range, CMXU range, which it does every day basically. We do a fair few systems that way. But it is basically a single shelf system. It's a pallet pool which rotates, a single shelf. Should you wish to enhance that, then we've got the PH cell system, which is can have 3 levels or 4 levels, depending on what workpiece sizes you like. For example, if you decide you want to have 500mm square pallets in a shelf system, you'd get 3 on a shelf and you can go 3 levels. But you can also go to the 400 pallets or the 320, and obviously you gain a shelf and you get more pallets on the system.
So if you have bigger castings and things like that, you would be able to essentially stack a series of systems.
The other thing with what we've seen in the field and the DMU50 is the Robo2Go.
Yes.
Yeah, again, that's just very versatile. It is basically, sort of picking the part up, putting the next bit in to a certain extent, isn't it? And it's very, very flexible, isn't it?
Yeah, the Robo2Go is designed for very easy programming. Actually, you're not programming the robot at all. The Celos control of the machine has a particular interface, just a screen where you fill in basically what size of silhouette plate you've got set on the robot, and it can make all the calculations of where those parts are. So it really is simple for a job shop to change from round to rectangular work and to program.
And coming back to the PH and or the PH cell and the PH150, is there a way, do you communicate to your customers about the increases in efficiency that you'll get from a system like this? Let's take a 5-axis machine. The benefit, clear to see physically, but where's the efficiency in terms of a percentage because you're not having to load the machine, you're not having to keep open and shut the door. Tim, is there a way you can measure that?
I think it's case by case with a lot of customers how you handle this. I mean, I've been to especially when you go to the 1 or 2 man bands that are working 12, 13 hours a day, and you introduce a system like this to them, and you can say, you can take a break, guys. You can actually go home this evening. That can bring the message home, and I think that what I want to be sort of make clear is it's affordable automation, in my opinion. I think it really is affordable. You can't afford to be without it in some cases.
Now we've had the luxury to be with you in Fronton, looking at a lot of new equipment. We saw the AGV last year, but when you walk around, your showroom, you walk around any exhibition that we've been to in the past. But 5-axis champions, that's what's written on your 5-axis machines. Why?
Why? For our knowledge of the 5-axis market, for our wide variety of machine tools, and for the massive and wide variety of automation coming directly from DMG MORI. And don't forget, when you do that as a company, you take total responsibility. You don't have to communicate with any other company about your machine tool other than DMG MORI. If there's a slight problem with an interface anywhere, which there can be, then unfortunately for us, it's all.
I mean, with time being pretty precious, this AGV is to me is an exciting venture, isn't it?
To us also.
Maybe walk us through, Kevin, what is the AGV for those people that don't know, and how does it work?
Okay, many companies already have a forklift truck, moving components, moving pallets around the interior of a building. And we thought, well, why not automate that? So we've got an AGV that is programmed from a cell controller. It's very easy to use. It's basically drag and drop of where you want your pallets to be. So you've got a machine shop now with different machine tools within it. You can load and unload those machine tools manually if you wish, or you can also use this AGV that's laser guided, that docks with the machine and loads and unloads pallet. You can even handle material with the AGV, so it's really exciting development, and you see both of you the first time in Fronton, and we're just really learning what that technology brings to the industry.
Sorry to cut you off, I know you've got some more questions, but if you've got any questions for the guys on the milling solutions, please email Charlie. She will pass them on to you, and these guys will hopefully answer your questions. So we're not ignoring your questions that are coming in, it's just that we're very short for time. But have you got another question, Paul?
On this AGV, safety concerns, any issues with an autonomous vehicle moving around the shop? It would look to me to be quite expensive as well. Is it affordable to most? Where does it fit? Probably come to you, Kevin.
Yeah, it is very much affordable. Clearly all of the equipment that we're talking about today, again, can be looked after under DMG MORI Finance, so we can look after the financial aspects of that. The AGV, well, if you were in front and if you'd have walked up to it, you'll notice that as soon as it approaches you, it starts to slow down. If you still don't move, it stops and waits for you to vacate the area. So it's got a full laser system to protect itself and you.
Well, he says that to me when he's driving his car, but it doesn't stop him.
You stand in the middle of the car park, what do you expect? But we're nearly coming to the end of this session. We are going to be talking about turning at 11:10. Now, the amount of money that DMG MORI spend on research and development, Tim, will there be more new milling models coming out?
Absolutely. There are some new models already sort of planned and have already been prototypes made. There will be some new models which I can't say too much about right now today, but looking at the end of this year, beginning of next year, I think you'll see some new additions that will certainly have an impact.
I think it's probably a good point to conclude on things like the WH cells. I know we've talked about pallet systems, but it's also important to stress that some of your automation includes changing grippers, changing work holding, changing work pieces. It's a collective, isn't it, Tim, across the board?
Yeah, again, so the WH cell, I mean, that's where we're working with robots in the cell. We have a WH 3 to 25, there's about 5 intermediate sections, which is your part handling capability in weight, basically. But it's flexible because it means that if you've got different components, the gripper can get changed within the system. So it opens up another avenue away from really where the robo-to-go goes.
Well, thanks for joining us, guys. Sorry, we've run out of time, Kevin. But coming up at 11:10, we've got turning and automation, and at 11:40, we're talking about additive again, but hybrid. See you soon.
experts here at DMG MORI are now going to show you the automation capabilities of the NLX 2500 and the brand new CLX 450 TC machines. Now, before the team carry on, remember that the benefit of this event is that DMG MORI UK have great availability of hand-picked core product due to the success of last year's live event to be shipped to your machine shop. So enough from me, let's dive in.
Welcome back to the DMG MORI showroom here in Coventry in the UK. We're talking about milling applications with automation. I'm joined here on the sofa by Dane and also Martin and my colleague, trusted colleague, Mr. Jones.
It's turning this stuff.
Did I say? Oh, my apologies. It's
Mind you, you can do milling on your
well,
turning
exactly.
machines.
I'm looking at some of my
There is that
capable as
confusion,
well.
yes, very
I'm looking at some of my words here. We're talking about you can have options on here, so my apologies. Now, when you look at the range, you know, we've spoken about that yesterday, the range, but specifically we're going to be talking about two machines. We're going to start off with the CLX 450 TC.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the CLX 450 is part of the multi-axis, so twin spindle, milling head sort of configuration of machine. And you have the CTX and the NTX machines in that range, NTX as well, as quite a broad family, giving a big range of sizes. What you also have there is, of course, as Dane pointed out yesterday, that the CTX, NTX and NTs are all basically 5-axis machines. They're very much, as you say, like 5-axis milling capability. The CLX machine is 5-axis positioning. So you can position to any angle 001 of a degree, regardless whether it's main or counter spindle, with the compact master milling head. That's the same on the CTX and NTX machines.
So is that, I mean, Dane, in your day-to-day activity, is that something that you think the business requires to be able to offer people, the ability to have this multitasking machine without necessarily the full 5-axis simultaneous?
Yeah, you get a lot of customers that come on and they say they want a 5-axis machine, but when you look at the parts, look at the application, it's not really a true 5-axis. Or 5-axis positioning or 5-face machining. Before this machine came out, we had to offer the NTX or the CTX TC. Now we've done this machine so that we can get into a market where you don't need a full 5-axis, but you've got a complex part where you would need more tools than you can get on a standard turret lathe. That's where it's usually on a standard turret lathe you can get 12. It's a 12-station turret, but you can go up to a 20-station turret. After that, you've got to do multiple setups. So then there's extra time changing between setups. Whereas on the TC machine, because it's got a tool changer, standard's 30 tools, but you can go up to 60 tools. So you can reduce your setup times as well.
One thing we've noticed in the field is that a lot of engineering companies, you know, obviously the temperature is very different, but you know, you've got the thermal stability on these machines, and quite they're on a lot of the range of the machines, aren't they? Is that because engineers need to make sure that that component is effective and being cut at the right temperature, so there's no difference each time?
Yeah, consistency is all important. What you don't want is the variation. The machines come, like the T450 TC, comes with magna scales on each axis to help enhance that aspect of it. So it becomes a more, you can have a higher precision for components and more general precision. I mean, the CLX 450 is really in our standard range because the options aren't that great. The numbers aren't, where the CLX you can have and the NTX, there are so many different options you can have. You need to spend a bit of time with us to talk about.
Well, this is a bit of a theme, and I said to Mark earlier when we were talking about this machine, multitasking is becoming very popular for the reasons that we talk about automation on any machines. One-hit machining, part off the machine complete. You know, it's key to be able to do that these days. The M1 as a machine that on the milling side they provide you know, limited options, does what it says it's going to do. This is really, is this a good comparison to make within the multitasking arena? That's where this machine fits.
It's packaged. Yeah, there are three main packages: basic, easy, and plus. So you have the standard machine, which is sort of tailstock sort of configuration. Then you have a counter spindle or tailstock, and then you have all the options that you can have, principally with many of the software options that you can have to enhance sort of the gear skiving, like the or gear hobbing, things of that nature. So it gives you a great deal of flexibility.
Dane, when we look at this aspect today within turning, what types of automation can you actually use with the CLX?
On the CLX, it's mainly a robot that you can put on the front.
Robot to go?
The robot, yeah. I mean, you've got two options you can use. We've got our own automation, so there's two versions of the robot to go. There's the standard where it's pick and place, but there's the vision as well, where it's you just put a pallet, and if it's got components, don't matter where they are, it comes, scans it, and then will pick it up in the right position and then places it back. Or we can work with a third party. It's, you know, the advantage of coming to us for the robot to go is it's all from one supplier. So, you know, if you ever have a problem, it's not, is it a problem with the robot or a problem with the machine? You know, it's, does the robot people come to fix it? Do the machine tool people come to fix it? With us, whether it's, don't matter what it is, it's us that will come
it's the package, basically.
It's dealing with one supplier.
Yep. It's all controlled from the machine control as well. So as Kevin pointed out, for the other programming systems for the machine center side, it's simple dialogue questions, drag and drop the bits that you wish, and then the automation performs those tasks for you.
I think what you do well with this, and this is coming from a conversation we had earlier, is about the fact that certain components within the machine, the tool changer, the spindle, they are already well established amongst the DMG Mori range, aren't they? So that's something, it's proven technology going into a new model, however, you know it's going to work well.
Yes, being the standard range, what we've taken is the magazine from the DMU 50, which you saw earlier from that side. So you've got the 30 and 60 tool magazine from that machine and utilised it on here. The other machines, the CTX and the NTX machines, have chain type magazines which have greater capacities, other flexibilities within those magazines that type of sort of machine doesn't. But because there are so many of those magazines in the field, they're extremely reliable. So it's not an issue. It's a newer machine, but it's proven technology. Even the head, the Compact Master milling head, is the same, whether it's the same sort of design, whether it's an NTX, CTX, or the CLX there for the 450 TC.
I've just picked a good question actually. For daily general turn mill, the CTX 2500 or the NLX 2000 plus, why?
Yeah, when the customers said turn mill, we determine turn mill as being slightly different. We would say a turn mill is when you've got a B-axis head. A lot of customers think they've got a turret lathe just because it's got milling, that it's a turn mill, which in effect it is. You know, you can mill and turn on it.
Is that why I got confused at the start of this then?
Yeah, well,
possibly.
I mean, the CTX 2500 is the NLX 2500 with the Siemens control.
Right, okay.
Predominantly the NLX range, I know we're moving on to a different range, but the NLX range is Mitsubishi control because it's a Japanese built machine. For the European market, they tend to prefer Siemens. So what they did is they brought out, instead of just calling it an NLX 2500 with the Siemens control, the CTX is more synonymous with the DMG brand. That's what they know. So they called it a CTX 2500. But basically, castings, everything, it's the same machine.
Yeah. We've got a couple of minutes, Paul. You've got a couple more questions on the CLX?
Absolutely. I mean, this for me, it's a machine, again, that's fairly recently introduced into your portfolio. Dane, for you, when you're going out visiting your customers, it's kind of a similar question to where I started this, but who are you now going to be kind of looking at? Who do you want to be watching this going, oh, I didn't realise that DMG Mori did a machine like that. That fits perfectly into what I need. Who's the ideal candidate?
Everybody. You know, if you're using a turret lathe now, and your jobs are getting a bit more complicated, a few more ops, this would be then the ideal machine, like I said, because you can reduce your setups. You've got more tooling. What you'll find is, what you might find is more people will tend to look at this machine rather than a turret lathe, because it's a lot more versatile.
Yeah, and this is an interesting point for me as well, as the option to have the tailstock or the second spindle. But you can also have the tailstock in the tool changer, can't you? You were saying to me earlier, where you can pull out, so you can have a second spindle. What about things like a lower turret? Are they not options on this
particular model?
That's when you step up to the next.
As I said, the standard range. So no, the lower turret isn't, but on the betas, gammas, and the NTXs, and so on, you can have lower turrets. So the configuration is there. So they're the higher spec area of the range.
And then on the points of the controls, because this is something we talk about, your app-based software and certain things on the controls that these machines can offer. Where are the restrictions then, let's say on the CLX, or maybe restrictions is the wrong word, what can you do with a CLX when it comes to the
You won't have
control?
all of the options that are available. You don't have the grinding options and so on that you would have on the other machines. But the majority of the ones, the gear skiving, as we said, gear hobbing, eccentric turning, things of this, y-axis parting, all those sort of options, and the ability to have the automation connected, controlled without a separate pendant control, all through there. Very, very simple and straightforward with the.
Okay, I'll just.
We need to move
yeah,
on. One more question.
Because it's the one that people will want to know. What's the saving then on this type of machine compared to the one you're talking about, the NTX? You know, we're hearing that this is an economies of scale. They're building lots of these machines with the limited options, but it's still, you know, what you would expect a pedigree product. What's the difference between the cost of this compared to maybe your NTX?
Looking at it, does depend on the final spec, but there's a 35 to 40% saving over the one of the other machines within that range. As I said, only because you're limiting the options and then you're using standard products. So it means that you have a machine we can manufacture more easily, whereas the other machines are tailored specifically to your particular demand, and then you get the best results from it. So you can have, instead of 10 pages of options with the CLX and 101 pages of options with the Gamma machine we talked about yesterday.
Couldn't they get that to 100? Why did they have to go to 100?
I'm sorry, customers keep asking us for new options, so once it's done, it tends to be there.
Right, we've got to move on. Just finally, Dane, have you got stock of the CLX?
We've got two CLX 450 TCs.
Have you got more coming as well?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Can we move on to the NLX 2500? Now, we see these a lot. Very popular. Why is that?
They are, although we've mentioned the flexibility of the other machine, the variety of machine sort of components that you wish to put through this, and its sizes, its 80mm bar capacity, as Dane mentioned, the 12, 16 or 20 station turret with the main and sub spindle gives you a great deal of flexibility. And the one behind us, the SY, the 2500 SY here, is again as a package with the part sketcher. All you need to do is put a bar feed on that and you're in production. If you take it as it is, it's a billet machine. If you wish, you can take the Robo to go and fit it, and then they become extremely flexible. And I don't know if you've mentioned why it's called Robo to go as well, because Robo to go means you can take it from one machine and move it to another. So you could take that machine with a bar feed and the prep for the Robo to go, purchase the Robo to go at a later date because your equipment has changed. You say you want more billet work. Then what happens is it allows you to run it more as a billet machine. Now your bar feed is set stationary, but it might have an occasional bar feed job. What you can then do, of course, if you purchase a second machine, you can then move it to the robot could be moved to that if you have the prep, and you can swap it between those machines and a third machine and a fourth machine if you so desired, dependent on the work that you have specifically. But if your planning can't allow you to change it, then the machine can be reconfigured, and it's plug and play.
Cool. good question here. Dane, I work in the oil industry. Do you do flat big, large chucking solutions?
We don't do big flatbed machines, do we? No, they're all slant. But we do the big. I mean, Martin mentioned yesterday about the NT6600, which is just over 1 metre diameter, 6 metres long. But we do the NLX 6000, which is very similar size, up to, I think it's 3 metres long, Martin.
3 metres.
Yeah,
you
3 metres long.
320 mil bore capacity on that one. Then we have the NZX 6000, which we mentioned, the twin turret, twin spindle type machines. But you can have that with a single turret, if you so desire, and 0.5 metre through the spindle.
Coming back to the NLX, you've got some more questions.
Not quite, but
With the NLX, before doing our research as we do, which hopefully comes across in this show,
today?
we did 100%. On the NLX, Martin, you talked to me about the turret. Now this is a really important point because it was something I didn't know before today. I looked at that turret and I thought, that's pretty big, days. It's a pretty beefy turret. And then you went into detail, and maybe you could do that now for our audience as to some of the differences between this turret and how it works and what that gives the customer.
No problems at all. It's one of the things that Dane finds particularly useful to talk to customers about, because the configuration of the machine with the box slideways makes it a very heavy duty machine. So although we mentioned material we don't make a soft machine or a hard machine, we make them to cover the full range. The heavy materials with interrupted cut or tough materials, then this really does come into its own. And again, we mentioned earlier, why does it have such a popularity? It's because it's extremely flexible in that sort of manner. But the physical size of that width of that turret is there because the milling motor, not the one that drives it to index, the milling motor is encapsulated within that turret. So each turret station will be driven by that motor. So it then has its own cooling jacket to make sure that you get the best performance, 10,000 revs. So extremely flexible. So milling, tougher materials and so on, very, very simple.
I would imagine the footprint as well, because when we go and see a lot of these installed, they are in small job shops, aren't they as well? And I think that's the flexibility also, isn't it?
But what that boils down to really is the point we're trying to get out. And what would you say, Dane, to your customer is, with that turret being different in some respects, what's the end result for a user?
Well, the end result for us, standard, you've got 10,000 RPM. So if you're machining softer materials or using smaller tools where you need the high revs, there's no compromise. You know, you can run them at the proper feeds and speeds, which gives you the better surface finish, the better tool life. But then if you want to put a 10 mil depth of cut on Inconel, it's not a problem. You know, it will. Let's say it's not a different. You don't have different machines. It's exactly the same machine, and you can do it.
One question to you, Paul. I mean, when you look at the way the market's going with machine tools, when you look at, there's a milling option, there's a turning option, it's getting closer together now, isn't it?
Well, they are. And when we talk about automation today, I mean, what we can't forget is that machine is automation as it stands there on its own.
Yes.
You know, you've got a sub-spindle, you've got the Y-axis, you've got the driven tools. I notice you've got the tool holders which will drive either side. So you're able to really kit these machines out as standard to be able to deliver results. I think the big point is, and this is where I dig into more detail about the turret and certain aspects of the machines, these machines will deliver, and I can't remember which one of you two gentlemen said the accuracy figure, but not just now, but in 5-10 years time, which is where you put the NLX as a machine, because you're telling people that it's a quality product today, which it is, but it will still deliver those same results in years to come. How is that possible, Martin, and what does that come down to?
What you'll see, and Dan mentioned this earlier, but many of the customers out there who are watching us, many of the people will have old SL machines. So the SL became the NL, became the NLX. And it's great for us to say that some of those machines are 20, 30 years old, and customers still have them, and they're still some of the most accurate machines they've ever had. That's good in that respect, but also bad in the fact that they have such a long life. But it means that even the tool holders will go from the older machine will fit on the newer machine, because on certain sizes there's a compatibility. and they go from the 6-inch chuck size machine, they set up the NLX 6000, which is a 24-inch chuck sort of capacity. So you have that sort of flexibility to choose the right one for you within that sort of size.
And I suppose part of your job these days is to try and get the customer to look at those longer term returns, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It becomes, over the years, it becomes such a durable piece of equipment that ultimately it becomes a very cost-efficient machine, because the service costs don't tend to be very great, so long as you sort of look after them, top the oils up, change the filters every now and again, that sort of thing. But the longevity of them means the cost per year is relatively small, but then when you tie it up with DMG MORI Finance, the initial purchase is so much more easy as well.
That's a good point, actually. I know I'm probably quite sad, but this morning in my hotel room, I watched the video that you produced with Steve, and we're talking about the finance side. And if you took an average of, let's say, £40 an hour, maybe over 8 hours in a day, you could actually make £57,000 or very near that in 6 months before you pay a penny back.
Yes, yeah, James has pointed those sort of things out, and I think he'll do a little bit more of that later on for you.
I think most machines, the commercial is critical, and that you're 100% right. I think for me, the longevity of a machine is so important as well. Cut into 5, 6, 10 microns, whatever it is now, but still maintaining that in 3-4 years time, 7 years time. Some machine tools will cut to that now, but in 5 years they won't be able to maintain that. So you will invariably have to replace that machine. So you're looking at here an investment that the commercial flexibility is great, but it's going to stand the test of time.
I think one thing you'll find is that what we don't do with the machines, we don't put software to keep the machine accurate. The machine is built to be accurate from the start. So it's, we're not constantly tweaking it as it gets older. It's just, it's a, like I said, it's a Japanese built quality machine. The components that we use, quality components. I know, Mark, you said earlier about stability and temperature. The bed on the NLX is cooled. The coolant is fed through the bed, so you're keeping everything at a constant temperature. So that if the temperature in your machine shop creeps up, well, your temperature on your machine slowly creeps up. So you're not, 1 minute you're cutting apart and it's the size, the next minute you're cutting it and it's 0.1 out. The machine in effect will gradually grow with the temperature around it, which then keeps you the stability, gives you the accuracy.
Automation. I know it is automation, and we touched on Robo2Go, but just I've got some points here. Things like gantry loaders, bar feeds, all of these things are available, aren't they, Martin, on these
standard
machines?
Bar feeds. The NLX, again, you can have that with a gantry with multiple different pallet pool arrangements for that. You can have third-party robots. You can have multiple machines linked via that with, as you mentioned, hand changers, jaw changers, everything. So that working with our DMQP partners, DMG MORI quality partners. So we have working with those sort of companies that when we put it on, we know it works. We have all the support in place to make the customer confident about what he's purchasing with these investments for the production cells that he might want to go.
Do you think that is the most flexible turning solution that you have in the portfolio?
It's our biggest seller.
It's certainly our biggest seller. We make over 6 a day. I mentioned it last time in October. Over 6 a day, every single day of the year. That one machine top.
So it's not just popular in the UK, worldwide?
Oh, it's worldwide.
Worldwide.
It's a worldwide popular machine.
Got one more question, if you have one.
Well, I mean, I think the controls is an important part as well on this. We talked about on the other model that we looked at, which is obviously the CLX, but some of the advancements in this control technology is great, isn't it? I mean, Dane?
Yeah, when you talk about the control, on the NLX, you've got the CLOS front end, and then underneath you've got Mitsubishi. For us, I mean, the CLOS, you could do a whole different segment on that control side of it. But what we are as a group is moving forward with technology. In theory, a lathe's a lathe, and there's not that much you can advance on it. So what we do is we look at how else we can help the customer. So what you'll find on the control is a lot of what we call technology cycles. So I think Martin mentioned a few of them earlier, like gear skiving. So that a lot of it, instead of sitting down with a CAM package and having to program it, it's all it is conversational, it's filling boxes. So if you can read a drawing, you can program the machine.
And a quick question, have you got stock in, have you got any more coming in?
We do, we have stock. We are, as we sell them, there will be more in. We have one with Robo-to-Go, I believe that's been sold already. One with a gantry and the standalone one you see behind us. There will be more.
Okay. Okay, I'll have to stop it there. If you've got any questions for these guys on the turning aspect, please send those through to Charlie and they will be passed on. But thanks very much, very enlightening in reference to a couple of machines. But next at 11:40 we've got additive manufacturing and we're looking at hybrids this time, so see you soon.
Following on from yesterday's discussion on the powder bed machines, the team are now going to explore DMG MORI's hybrid capabilities. Now remember, this is your opportunity to get your questions answered. Use the comments box or email Charlie, who will look after all of your inquiries. Now let's head over to Mark.
Welcome to the DMG MORI Coventry showroom. It's day 2 of Technology Excellence. I'm here with Paul, but we're going to be talking about additive manufacturing again. We're talking about hybrids. I'm joined here with Rob and also Terry. But tell us what hybrids actually mean and what you have in the range.
So hybrid is all about taking a subtractive machine tool and adding additive to it. So the hybrid range, basically we have 5-axis machine tools. So you've got high performance spindle, tool magazine, coolant system, everything you'd expect from a 5-axis milling machine. But then adding into that is a powder nozzle, directed energy deposition, building head, allowing us to machine, add, however we see fit in the process.
And Rob, within the portfolio of the machines on the additive hybrids, what do you have available to customers?
What, each machine type?
Yeah, what machine models that you've got, how many?
So within the hybrid, we've got a monoblock machine, we've also got the dual block machine, we've also then got the LT machine. All of them use the same technology type, it's just down to the size, architecture of the part. So the ultimate machine the customer will end up with will often be derived from what type of components or what type of technology they want to move into.
Looking at these two parts, like we did yesterday, I think it's the best thing to do because this is a really good illustration of the technology and what it does. Talk us through the one that's furthest from me. What is it?
The one that's closest to me, that looks the rougher on the outside. So what we've got here is a tool used from the automotive die making industry. So here we've gone through and we've got 2 materials inside of this tool. So traditionally, press tools are going to be made from tool steel. We've got a high wear rate, and also there's a big problem with the heat in the material being pushed into the tool and then the tool starting to degrade. So what we're doing here is we're trying to look at the material properties, not just the actual form that we're trying to make. So we've got 2 materials. The top that you can see there, is slightly bronze in colour, so that's the brass. So that we're using that to actually wick away the heat from the tool, and then we've got the tool steel built around it. So we've got the tool steel for wear, the other material to actually subtract away from. But it doesn't have to be just those 2 types of materials. Within the machine, we've got 2 hoppers, so we can integrate 2 material types together. You can change those very, very quickly, so it doesn't have to be we buy a machine and these are our only 2 machines that we have forever, amen. It can be set up for the job. One quirk of the system is that we can also work with materials that don't particularly like each other. So if we have material A and material B, normally if we're in a welding process we have to have common material types so it will actually bond and adhere. But what we can do is we can add very, very small percentage of material A with material B and then slowly change the percentages and let the 2 amalgamate, bind together and then switch to material B.
So you're mixing properties of materials?
Yeah,
yes.
So there's an example there in the space industry with rockets. So you're talking about parts where things get very hot, materials tend to want to move onto each other. So what we do is where we need 2 different materials in 2 different areas, we just slowly blend from one material to the other rather than having one and the other.
You talk about the space industry. Is there any other industries where this type of technology really applies itself?
I think it's quite an industrial technology. You know, you're talking about, you know, this example that we spoke about is aluminium die casting in automotive, so we're tooling and what advantages we can get there. That also then extends to things like gas turbines and perhaps aerospace turbines where we can repair high value parts or we can build high value parts from scratch to reduce the need for a diverse range of castings.
I can see so many opportunities in this. It's unbelievable. The more you look into it, you think actually it's like we talked about yesterday about re-engineering, redesigning how you do things. There's a science in engineering that if you apply your knowledge to things, I mean, like for example, parts that might need more durable, harder materials on the edges. However, you want to reduce the weight of those components, you can use, you know, maybe I'm probably not the right person, and you guys are, to talk about mixing materials, but if you had an aluminium on the internals and then a harder material on the extremities, the wear surfaces is something where this can cost you then less to make that part.
Cost is a factor, yeah. So Inconel 718 is one of the common materials for this process. And you look at Inconel parts, does all of that part really need to be expensive Inconel? Could we say stainless steel and just build in Inconel at the times that we need it?
If you talk like an impeller in a pump or something like that,
yeah.
you know, the edges of those surfaces where the wear is at its extreme, that's where you can use
It's not even just the edges where we have wear. So if you take something like a shrouded impeller, typically very, very difficult to go away and manufacture because it's being cast and we need to machine the actual aerofoil sections of the blades. What we can do with this level of technology is to actually build the component up, leave the blades exposed, machine back all of the surfaces that we need, and then grow the material back on top. So we end up with a finished component that comes off. But it's, with the technology, the thing to kind of think about, it's not just for repair, it's not just for new build, it can be used across all technology sectors.
This is a big learning curve for a lot of companies, isn't it? And there's quite a good question there, Terry. Does the printed component need heat treating before machining?
There are some cases where you would need to preheat the part, and you can do that externally or find a way of doing that, that within the machine. But generally, we're building onto a cold base plate or an existing part. You know, we load a part into a machine if we're going to build onto it, and we start building in the same way that we would if we were loading a billet into a machine and going to start machining it. You know, it's.
And I suppose, Rob, to a certain extent, when you look at the blade market, you know, for instance, power generation, you do get wear on the blade, don't you? So is that a perfect example?
Wear. Yeah, you get immense wear, and the traditional way of repairing that blade is to take it out of the engine, manually go through, fettle off the damaged area, then build the material back up again, then hand grind it back. What we can do with this machine and technology is to actually just take the blade as it is, put it straight into the machine. We can use the metrology in the machine to identify the good, the bad, remove the bad, then use the cladding technology to go away and add the material back in. Once again, check the blade for any deformation that's happened, and then machine the blade back so there is no mismatch between the two, and we have a finished component ready to go back into.
There's also areas that I think of as well, and when I used to machine, sometimes I'd be machining some huge cast iron components, and you'd get halfway through the machining cycle and you'd notice there was big cavities and the material hadn't been poured correctly, it was porous, or whatever the terminology is. When you're printing, you can be assured that you know, because you're building from the ground up, you're not going to come across those issues, are you?
No, I mean, there's a lot of talk out there about additive, and this can apply to this technology and the technology we spoke about yesterday, where, you know, is it ready for industry? What's the material like? Is the material structure really good? But actually, when you look at it, we know more about additively built parts than we do about anything else.
What, because of the raw material itself?
Well, because we can be looking at what it is that we're creating as we do it.
So one of the quirks of our system is when we're building the material, we're actually looking down the same line or path that the laser's taking, and we're monitoring the temperature at that exact point, and we can go away and control it from hotter to colder. So we know the metallic builder patterns.
Because I could have been machining, I could have been machining parts for hours, you know, and then suddenly you realise
days, I would imagine.
Days, I was always behind time, but yeah, you'd machine it and you'd go, oh, that's scrap, you know.
But it can also be a tool for that.
Yeah,
it can also be a tool for mistakes. You know, if you want a 5-axis machine tool, a hybrid machine can be that. It can be a 5-axis milling machine, uncompromised.
So you mean when he scraps a part, you can unscrap it?
When he scraps a part, we can unscrap it.
Would you let me on any of these machines in the show? I don't think you would somehow, would you? Really?
Or does something need repairing, or does, you know?
But does this sort of technology influence the next technology, do you think? You know, you've gone from machine tools, we've gone to additive manufacturing, now obviously you're subtracting as well, and you're building. You know, does this
It
give...
will drive where the technology is going. I think one of a key part that a lot of people haven't really looked at the moment is that in subtractive world, we tend to start up with some huge shapes and machine it down and have 60-70% scrap. Here, so use the example that's got the blade on, we can start off with a near net part and just add the features that we need to go on. So we don't need to add 20% extra material, we just add that feature that we want and then machine it back.
That's really interesting.
If you look at that part there as well, you know, you can imagine that you could turn the cylinder of that.
Which one?
The one that's closest to Paul.
Yeah.
You could turn the cylinder of that before you add the blades. So all of that milling that you would have to do around those blades.
Because we spoke yesterday about the fact that this was a slower process for creating a part in a lot of instances. But what we're actually suggesting here is, depending on the complexity of the component and the metal material removal that you need on some parts, this could actually possibly be faster, maybe in some instances.
There's another good question. I pose this to you, Rob. What's the changeover time for different materials?
So changeover material, it will go through and the machine has a self-clean facility. So we're not talking 10 minutes, it will go away and it will have to clean it all out properly. So the powder in this isn't as fine as the SLM technology, but we're not talking days. It's quite a quick process.
And Terry, I know this is a bit of an, you know, sort of a subject that maybe, I could imagine your technology goes to some companies that don't really want to know they got it. Is that the sort of market, you know, the research, the development, you know, the space, the nuclear, I don't know, whatever these sort of NDA type companies, is that where this technology is being used?
Yeah, I mean, it's being used as a tool in quite a diverse range of applications. Some of those are public, you can find online, but as you say, some of them aren't, and there are some interesting applications that we can't talk about.
Yeah. And when you one thing that we've been talking about over the last couple of days, and Paul and I think it's quite unique, is the finance side. Does the finance option, can that be applied to you know, both sides of your additive manufacturing?
Yeah, no, I mean, with this type of machine, in fact, all of our machines, we can go away and use our finance with any of our portfolio. But where this machine kind of stands out amongst anything else is that although people will look at the machine and think additive, 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 the fundamental building blocks of this machine is a subtractive machine that we have added a cladding head to the side. So we can go away and using a typical working pattern over a week, you could be looking at an investment for this style of machine of about £40 an hour. So it's not amazingly expensive and out of there, but it offers everyone the flexibility of, I might be cutting subtractively for 40% of my week, and then for the other part we can go away and grow. So you don't have to have a complete additive need.
What about the CAD cam on this? How's all that working? Because
so with this type of process, we work with NX. So we've got a ground up solution, so we can go through it. It knows about the machine, it knows about the parameters, it knows about the technology in order to grow the material and then subtract the material.
Okay, so it's there to help when you...
Very much so, and it's been proven. It's now 5-6 years old, and before there was the development, but it's out there in the field. So we do have some case studies that we are happy to talk about where people have granted us access, but like you said, most of it, and especially in the UK, is shrouded in secrecy.
Yeah. And when you look at this type of technology, it's not like you'd have lots and lots of stocks of these type of machines, but are they available fairly quickly?
We do have, you know, you're looking at 6-month build time really, but we do have machines in stock and showroom machines at this time.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else, Paul?
Yeah. Speed of change, tool changer from when can you? How long does it take from milling a part to printing? What's the changeover?
Never timed it myself, but I'm going to say a minute, probably less.
Okay.
I'd say I had less than a minute.
So as the machine looks, it's very much like a standard machine, tool changer, as you're standing out is on the left-hand side. To the right, we've got the docking station, which carries all of the powder delivery and all of the laser optics. It just comes across.
The real benefit with this machine is the fact that we've got machining and additive in one.
Yeah.
It's what you can do when you can flip between the two as much as you like.
Yeah.
That's where it really comes in.
And just to confuse you, it's not just milling, it's also turning.
Thanks very much, Rob. I appreciate that. But no, it's been a great insight into the additive side. So if you've got any questions, please send them through to Charlie, and Charlie will pass them over to these experts. That a minute is less time that it takes you to actually do your shoelaces up in the morning, by the way, because it's been timed. You have now, that's why. But coming up next at 12 o'clock, Net Service and Messenger, and then at 12:15, DMG Mori Finance, but also Steve Finn will be joining us to wrap up day 2. Thanks very much. See you soon.
Thank you.
server in your factory linked to a DMG MORI machine, and it can monitor what the production is doing, what the status of the machine is, so you can see the functionality of the machine at any set time, live on any mobile device, PC, or even a large screen.
And does it work just on one machine?
No, so you can have it, so you can have a group of machines which can be split down by departments, or you could even, in some respects, split around by factories. So we can see different factories throughout Germany, for instance.
So really, it's almost like you're being able to control what's going on in your facility when you're not there.
Yes.
And who's it going to benefit?
So it can benefit anyone in the business, because the software has what they call dashboards, and each dashboard you can design yourself. So you can be, like, for managing director, you can have a dashboard which, when you look at it on your phone, you can just see what machines are going, green and red, that simple. Or you may be the production manager or looking after production cycle times. So you can then see what that's doing. You can look at what jobs being run, speeds, feeds, if people have turned down the overrides. Really intricate detail about what's going on with the machine. Or on the other hand, you may just be the operator. You have a different one, and you can see if there's alarms. So if the machine alarm's out and you've got a number of machines to look after, or you running it lights out through the weekend and the alarm comes up, then you can very easily just go and see what the alarm is and fix it.
Can it sort of detect anything that potentially could go wrong? For instance, if a tool's not set properly in a machine, or is it just more the fact that the machine's actually gone down, you need to do something with it?
Yeah, so it would detect the machine's gone down, and you can obviously use the software and all the applications that are within the machine, like measuring. So if a machine is out of limits, then it will stop the machine and it will come up on your phone.
And it's very preventative, and it's extracting all that information. And at the end of the day, we talked so much about Industry 4.0.
Yeah.
That's the way forward. Is it universal or just for DMG MORI machines?
So yeah, so the Messenger 4, which has just been released, that is now available for all machines with certain types of interfaces. But the majority of machine tools we can now link into that.
Right. And have you got any examples of out in the market, out in the field being used?
Yeah, of course. So we've got two types. We've got the smaller companies which have just the one machine, and say sometimes they might not have manned night shifts, so unmanned night shifts, unmanned weekends. Those that aren't there can still see that their machines are running, if they've got any alarms on there, if they do need to get anybody down there to change, like anything that's broken or just it's gone down, they need it to carry on working. And then also we've got multinational companies who have got factories around the UK with multiple machines. You may not be there, but you can still see that your machines are working. You've got the product engineers that can still see everything that's going on, keep a download of the different types of machines, and it just helps everyone in the company.
Essentially, it's giving a manager, a staff member, peace of mind of what is going on in their facility. Is this an option then when you purchase a machine?
Yeah, so yeah, when you buy the machine, it is an option, or you can buy it separately. So we sell it as a separate option, and at the moment there's a special offer going, and it's approximately about 1/3 of the price of the standard price, and that includes fitting as well. So it's a cracking deal. If you want it, now's the time to get it.
So probably, not to do your job, but Charlie, your inbox is going to be going a little bit wild now.
That's what I can assume.
I think that's the interesting thing about these type of events, isn't it? Okay, we're not allowed to, be around the world at our exhibitions that we go to, but getting the message across to users that may think, actually, I've got that, but I don't use it.
Yeah,
it's quite key, isn't it? And did we say that you had quite a big uptake last October when we put the live show?
Yes, we had a good uptake of people seeing things on the machine they didn't realise they had with it, such as my DMG MORI, which we discussed yesterday, and also Messenger, which people now, especially with the COVID, are just using it because they can monitor the machines without having social distancing, all controlled.
We are running out of time. Have you got any other questions?
I've just got one more question, sorry, for yourself, John. How can you demonstrate it to people? So, right, I'm interested, but how are you on the road talking to people? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm on the road, so if you want me to come and visit you, I can. I've got the software on my laptop. I can do it by Teams. So I don't need to visit you to show you. I can either do it through Teams, I can visit you face to face. So there's no problem with that. Just come give me a call via Charlie and
Okay.
Charlie, and and we can come and see you and show you the benefits.
That's great. Talking about net service now, who would like to tell me a little bit more, or us, about net service?
Yeah, so net service is a remote access to your machine from our applications department or our service department, and so that we can help you if you have an issue. So basically, if there's an issue with your machine, we're there to assist you, and as if we're stood in front of it.
So like a virtual?
Yes, a virtual engineer stood in front of your machine.
And
so
who uses this, and who has used this?
So anyone who buys a DMG MORI machine will have that included in the warranty period of the machine. So they can use it, and basically if you're in a service, you're at breakdown, we'll access a service department. They can then come and see what is wrong with your machine. We have a live stream camera with it, so then what it means is we can visually see it, we can see the control, and we can see what's going on and how so we can run it and see what's happening when things go wrong.
John, are you telling me then people who have DMG MORIs already have this facility on their machine now?
Anyone with a new machine have got it on now.
Yes.
Not everyone's taken it up, and this is part of this message, is to say it's there for you. And if you've got any questions, some of the biggest questions is security, because people don't want to hack their systems because the network.
Well, it's sort of an NDA company that say.
Or anyone really, because you don't, it's like your home. You don't want anyone to hack your laptop. Basically, it works on a very secure network. It's an encrypted line that when you, as a customer, press the button for assistance, the line is then made, like a little spider goes out, sets up, then there's an encrypted line with security settings, and then we will do what we need to do on it, and then we'll cut it, come back. So when we've finished doing work on your machine, there is no connection of your machine to the internet, so no one can hack it.
So really, if I've got a number of DMG MORI machines, for instance, and I've got a problem with one effectively, rather than rely and wait for a service engineers to come out, might be able to fix it through net service.
Yeah. So
have you got any examples out there in the field?
Yeah, of course. So most recently we had 3 separate customers that had some issues in 3 different locations around the UK, and we had a single engineer that within the one day was able to access net service remotely and successfully fit those issues with full communication to those customers at the same time. So yeah, it did work really well for them.
We're just running out of time here. For any engineers that want to know a little bit more about Messenger or net service, what's the best way to connect with you, Charlie? Is it send you an email?
Yes.
And then basically you look at the package they've got?
Yeah. See if they've already got it, if they just need it to be uploaded. If not, go over to John and then he'll be able to get in touch with you and sort it out for you all.
Is there an option and cost? Is it an option to buy?
Yeah, it is an option to buy, but like you say, with the warranty of the machine, it comes free, and it's, once again, we got a very good deal for it. So just come and speak to me, and it will support you both for service and applications.
Yeah.
I suppose that sort of backs up the collaboration from DMG MORI UK. Okay. It's not just about the machine tool, it's about the whole service at the end of the day. But thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure you want to get back to your emails, Charlie, so apologies for that. John, thanks for joining us. Thanks, Lindsay. Now we're going to be with James Clist at 12:15. We're going to be talking about DMG MORI Finance, but with automation, and also Steve Finn is going to join myself and Lindsay. See you soon.
DMG MORI UK claim that nobody in the world can finance a machine like they can. The core of this event is how DMG MORI have their own finance book, which gives them greater flexibility to match a perfect finance solution to a company's requirement. Now over this, the final session, you'll hear some extraordinary case studies that DMG MORI have delivered to customers. James Clist joins the MTDCNC team on the sofa to explain all.
Welcome back to here, DMG MORI, Day 2, Technology Excellence, here in Coventry. Lindsay is with me. It's much better than Paul, but thank you very much for the intro, Paul. Easy to talk to, easy to talk to. And you're outnumbered now because we've got Mr. James Clist, who heads up the finance side of the business, and Managing Director Steve Finn, and we'll talk to you in a moment, Steve. But the purpose of today, James, is not only to talk about the finance aspects of what you offer to customers, but also to include other options like automation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for a long time, automation has been seen as a separate item to a machine tool purchase. Without doubt, the portfolio of automation within DMG MORI means that it's almost second nature. You know, we're looking at it on an ongoing basis now, and it's very much integral to any investment decision.
Now, let's just jump back a little bit, because anyone who missed yesterday, watching today for the first time, Steve, your words yesterday and today, you know, nobody in the world can finance the way DMG MORI finance. So what does Steve mean by this, James?
Well, I think what lies behind it, Lindsay, fundamentally, is the fact that my colleagues in Germany set this business up back in 2007, and they become so closely aligned, first of all with Morisiki and then with DMG MORI, that there is a total understanding from floor to ceiling throughout the business in Stuttgart, whereby the support staff, the underwriting team, everybody understands the equipment, and more importantly what the equipment will do for prospective and existing DMG MORI customers.
And what's that going to benefit for some, you know, what are people going to benefit when they're using you for finance? Because you're seeing a deal differently, you're looking at the residual value differently.
Yes, we understand the residual value. We understand completely what the value of the equipment is through its first 5, 6, 7 years of its life. But I think more importantly, it's understanding the impact that a machine can have on a company's finances. So when we look at an investment, it's not purely about it's a machine, it's an NMV 3000. It's understanding the amount of income that it could generate for a company and the benefit that the company will derive with its profitability from that.
And so let's talk about automation now, because that's going to be the heart of this discussion. How do you look at automation differently to, say, different lenders out there?
Well, I can't really speak about how other lenders view automation today, but in terms of DMG MORI Finance, the automation is fundamental. So if we look at, say, for example, a DMU 50, as Kevin and Tim referred to earlier, with a PH150 system,
okay,
it absolutely, it's inherent. It's no different to saying that on this machine we're going to put a hand wheel or a control. It just is part of the investment, and we will imbue the residual value of that investment in exactly the same way as the machine. The two work hand in hand.
I spoke to Steve last October at the live event. We was talking about how many machines that the sales team are actually talking to, selling with an automation system of some kind. When you look at the aspect of the finance side, you know, how many customers are you talking to who are buying machines that want to consider the finance options, James?
Well, if you look at the group results last year, Mark, 1 in 4 machines, and I don't mean bar feeds, but 1 in 4 machines were sold with automation. That gives you a very good feel of where it's at. And certainly as we progress and we move out of this pandemic, and we look for the manufacturing industry to become more competitive, for work to be reshored, we need to be more competitive. And to be competitive, we've got to compete with low-cost economies. Now, putting all the supply issues aside from Europe and other areas of the world, the ability to compete head-on is only going to be achieved with technology-driven investment with automation.
Can we go back to that example of the PH150? Have you got a live example where you have financed it, and can you go into a little bit more detail here?
We have a number of examples of customers obviously purchasing PH150 on simple CMX50U, which is the 3+2 5-axis, and also on more complex 5-axis machines as they progress through the range. For a long time, automation has been maybe seen by the finance industry that customers need to have a very, very long order book in order to justify the investment. And that simply isn't the case now. You know, with 10 different parts being able to put onto a 10 pallet system on the PH, it does mean it just becomes a very, very workable solution that can help a customer become competitive and reduces costs.
And how do you view those costs? Do you look at the labour that's standing in front? How do you kind of prove those costs out?
Well, if we look fundamentally that a PH1 system is round about £100,000, and when you compare that with the cost of a skilled CNC machinist, very, very quickly, if we amortise the cost of the PH system over the course of 5 or 6 years, and we have the same residual value in place, it becomes a really compelling financial argument. And that's something that myself and also the sales team will work with on a daily basis.
And not talking about finance, but you're talking about, you know, jobs here. What is it that automation is ultimately doing on top of that?
Well, fundamentally, skilled people are absolutely at a premium in this country.
True.
So automation isn't about losing jobs, it's about deploying those jobs in the most advantageous way for our customers, whilst allowing machines to run unmanned, maximising profitability and capacity.
UK manufacturing as well.
UK manufacturing.
For many years, the UK has been behind on automation compared to Europe, let's say worldwide. Are you seeing a big change now, James? Are you getting involved with finance deals that, you know, are looking at the range of automation to add to a machining solution?
I think fundamentally, what has always been the problem with automation is everyone assumed it had to be big, big volumes. And in the subcontract market in the UK, generally visibility has been somewhat of an issue. The increased flexibility of automation now allows customers to invest in automation with a variety of parts, whether it's on milling or turning.
You've got an example on the NMV behind me, haven't you, that you have previously financed?
It's a really nice story. A customer made his first step into automation with this machine, and it's quite a simple story. The business was able to set the machine up on Friday lunchtime when they shut for the week. They then ran the machine through Friday afternoon, Saturday and part of Sunday, and when they came in on Monday morning they had a week's worth of supply. That paid for the machine for the week effectively.
Wow.
And that then gave them 5 days of capacity that they could then sell on other jobs.
Wow, so interesting.
Well,
the way you're viewing deals as well.
It's an amazing machine. I mean, the amount of work that you can put through this. I mean, yet again, talking to the guys across all the solutions over the last couple of days, it's about that sort of getting the customer to look longer term on that investment, because in 10 years' time, you're going to be there rather than just look at it within the first year.
Well, it is, Mark, and again, I'll go back to a point I made yesterday. DMG MORI is not a machine tool company, it's a solutions provider. And that being the case, Steve's team that I work with closely every day in sales, they're driven at understanding a customer's requirement. It's not just about selling a piece of metal, it's about understanding the business and bringing in all the other elements within the DMG MORI portfolio, automation and lifecycle services, to maximise the return on that investment. And that's important to me.
Yeah, you're an integral part to the kind of the cogs of this working as well, because you're there from the very beginning when someone shows interest. Now, you said yesterday you make technology affordable, and it was right at the end of the show and we ran out of time. So can you give us an example of this?
Yeah, it was a very nice comment that a customer made last week actually. They were looking to make a considerable investment, the most sizable investment that company had certainly ever made. And as you would, they were looking at a number of other competitor machines, some they had experience of already. And the DMG MORI offering was a total solution. It was a machine which would have made this investment effectively inflation-proof for the next few years. But that came at a headline price. We worked with the customer, we sat down, we understood what he was looking to achieve, and his comment was that you have made what appeared to be at the outset quite an expensive offering.
So you worked more than what they were looking at, yeah?
By an amount. But by the time we'd actually sat down, we'd structured the deal to exactly what the customer required, he said, it's become the most affordable solution for us.
And you know yourself, Lindsay, you know, we've been out together visiting a lot of DMG MORI customers.
Yes.
And, well, look what I have. I couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think I could afford it.
Yeah.
And James and his team have helped them achieve it.
Now, I mean, I don't know if you were watching the whole show and if you missed this or it's the first time, but I recently went to a company, Bedford CNC, and I think we talk about this quite a lot because Andy it's a small company, and his dream was to own one of these machines.
He's never had a new machine
tool. He's never had a new machine tool, and he's got one of these sitting in his facility, and he was smiling from ear to ear, and he was so happy, and it's given him a good problem because it's going through the work so quickly that now he's got a different problem on his hands because he's completing the work, so he's got to go out and look for new work. And you know, as a team, what a story. Like, you've just transformed this gentleman's machine shop, but also his life and the way he works.
Do you actually help these people by giving them a sales pitch to go for new work because they haven't done it for the last 10 years?
That's what you need to do.
No, but I think it is clear that investment in the latest technology, especially when it's done the right way, so that every facet is secure. I mean, the fundamental, and I'll repeat what I said yesterday, the fundamental here is that technically the machine has to be right. If that's right, then invariably the machine will work and the customer pays us back, which is important.
Yeah.
But once the technology is right, we can then give the commercial element to make the investment happen.
You know, sorry.
No, you carry on.
Just to add to that, it's quite interesting. From going to his facility, we were there filming, and he was having a customer of his come in, and he was building that relationship, and he spoke to us, and he said the relationship is building because of that machine. So what a positive story to come out from all of this. It's really exciting for him.
We do need to move on in a moment because Steve has joined us. I'm sure you've got plenty of work to do, Steve. So, but just a quick question, James. Now, a lot of engineers may not know how the finance or the way to work with you guys. Is it really that simple as saying, that's the right machine, how can I finance it? That's the package, sign here.
I think at the basis of all of this, it comes with working with the local area sales manager. They are the focal point of what this company can provide, from a very simple 3-axis milling machine to the most complex 5-axis, multi-axis turning, horizontal machining, additive, automation. The list is endless. So by talking to the local area sales manager, they know the product. They're then supported by the likes of Martin and Tim as product specialists in their respective fields, Terry in terms of additive, and everything centres then back in once the technology is right and that offering is made. At that point, we start working with the customer and understanding what challenges may be faced and what we need to do to help the investment proceed.
Easy as that?
Easy as that, Mark.
And it's all about relationship and collaboration as well.
It's working with a trusted partner, absolutely.
We do need to move on. Is there anything else you wanted to say about finance?
It's just interesting how you see a deal, and you can put residual value back. You can do a 6 month where you're earning off the machine. There's loads of different facilities that you have where you can work with a customer. You're tailoring a deal to everybody for their individual needs.
Lindsay, at the heart of this, we want our customers to sleep at night. Some customers might not want the residual value. They might want to know that after 5 or 6 years, even 3 years, the machine is theirs. And we can do those vanilla deals. But at the same time, we can then really utilise the inherent residual value within these machines, utilise our expertise in giving the customer the lowest monthly cost, which in turn results in him having a high monthly return, and that's important.
And I think it's also important to say, James, isn't it, the whole portfolio of over 150 machines, which you can offer customers, they do allow themselves to actually go through the process of the finance, and like Steve has said, the whole purpose really is not just about technology, automation, finance, it's also about selling machines. You've got plenty of stock coming in, and I presume the area sales managers can actually sort of get you involved once they've got the process right for the customer.
Mark, machines make money. Let's help UK manufacturing get back up, reshore parts, and get the economy moving again.
Yeah, good message. Now, Steve, rewind 11 months ago. Myself and Paul were here looking at the machines that were destined to go to a second Mac. Okay. Yeah. As a business, and also the amount of new machines that you sold last year, 43%. Tell me how you've coped from a service aspect.
Service has been the most difficult because we're putting, I'm putting my staff into an environment that I've got no control over. But most customers have been really great. They've adhered to the COVID restrictions that they have to work under. We've given our guys good training on it and all the safety equipment that they need. But the important thing actually, Mark, is that we've kept the level of service the same as it was prior to the COVID. So our service support desk is still there. We've managed to get out to customers as and when they need it. And the important thing is we've been continuing with the spare parts. And this is quite an important part for us. Parts do wear, nothing is forever. Parts do need replacing, parts do break, unfortunately, and that's a fact of life. And you can buy original spares from us at highly competitive prices. We will price match anybody in the marketplace on a spare part, plus the fact we are supplying original parts, because of course there are some customers that would buy non-original parts. We will price match with them, and we will generally deliver within 24 hours, so generally the next morning. So we got up to about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening to order from Geretsried in Germany, which is right next door to Munich Airport, straight on a plane, down with you by 9, 10 o'clock the next morning. That's a really important part to make sure our customers' machines remain productive.
Well, you're only as good as your weakest link, aren't you?
We haven't got any weak links.
Exactly.
We haven't got any weak links.
Obviously, yeah. And finally, Steve, you've put a lot of effort and your team into this live event. You've got a lot of stuff coming in, obviously that can be linked to the finance. Is there any final message that you would like to give to not only your own customers, but potential customers in the UK and Ireland?
There is certainly. I mean, we haven't had enough time in the last 2 days to do ourselves justice, but I think we've given the UK market a very good overview of what we're capable of. I think you guys, thanks Lindsay, thanks Paul and Mark, I think you've all delivered some quite difficult questions for us. Some of those were not pre-arranged, so the guys had to think about it. So I'm really, really pleased on the performance of my staff sitting here. It's not easy in front of a camera, it really isn't, but they've done well. They're great in front of the customers. I thank all the production staff, they've done a fantastic job here. I think we've gone through this without any blips at all. It's been fantastic. But most of all, the customers and potential customers out there, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to us. If you want to go into any more detail, we're ready and available to help, as are the machine demonstrations. So we can either do demonstrations in here in the showroom under certain conditions, or we can do virtual ones, which takes the virtual ones, we can do demonstrations of machines that may be in the showroom in Japan or Germany. We can do that as well.
Well, as flexible as the range is, it's the whole process. But no, it's been a pleasure being here, Stephen. Thank you very much. Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Finally, Lindsay?
No, I couldn't have said it better myself, just thank you.
We would like to, the MTDCNC team would like to thank you very much for your time of joining us. We hope that we've opened a few options for you to consider if you don't know DMG MORI. They have plenty of stock. Speak to their area sales managers. I'm sure they would be pleased to tell you what they have. These guys are a machining solution. The UK market, we embrace that engineering has been very strong, and DMG MORI UK are there to support that. So thank you very much for viewing. Thanks for your time.